Yeah. So here we are talking about the news, and yeah, the news is it's an interesting that's going on. Unfortunately, yesterday's news may have been a bit cut short. Unfortunately, unaware to me, the news was the stream was slightly interrupted by other things. So yeah, unfortunately, we have to look back on that. So yeah, so this is a little bit older, but basically going back into the news when it comes to Alex Jones, 49.3 million damages over his claims that the Sandy Hook was a hoax, which landed his followers in harassing the parents of the killed children. Yeah, not a nice man. Yeah, awful man, and obviously it doesn't make much of a dent in his massive fortune. So does it affect him as much as a fine of a couple of like 50 grand would to somebody else? No, I think it is an issue. That this is his job. His job is to spread conspiracy theories. So this isn't going to warn him off doing this again. He's going to do this again and again and again. Uh, there is being, possible criminal things into him, that he might go to prison. Not necessarily, but like might go to, land up in a court where it'll be criminal prosecution. But who knows if that happened? January 6th, for example, he did take the fifth, I believe, multiple times. So this kind of evidence that's come up in this court case might well be useful to circumvent around a discussion with it himself. So yeah, not a nice man. And I think the issue mostly is that it won't drive him off, because it ultimately isn't something that he is really that much of a person who's he makes a ton of money off conspiracy theories. He profits directly off them. He'll say to you, "Oh, there's a problem, and guess what? There's a solution. Buy it from me." There's no problem. The problem is, a conspiracy theory. So there's no actual problem, but he's selling you a solution. So it's the issue of, if you don't have that, if he doesn't have a conspiracy theory, what will he sell you? If there's actually something wrong, then there most likely will be legitimate sellers out there. But he has to be the one to actually give you a problem. So you haven't actually bought the solution yet, because why would you? There's no problem. And then he goes, yeah, so like there's something in the water. Here's a water filter. Blah, 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 blah. Going ahead, causing this problem to be, appear like, oh yeah, see now, the reason why it's not affecting me is because I bought this thing. It's definitely not the problem, never existed. So, you know, it was never going to be an issue for me. And that, of course, is a marketing thing. So there's an issue behind it, which is that he ultimately is going to profit off, the labor of a conspiracy theory. And that means it's going to be profitable for him to continue to spout conspiracy theories. So I don't think he's ever gonna stop unless he goes to prison for it. Yeah. So. And Amazon has said that unions are not the best answer for its Irish workers. So recently in Dublin, there was a new Amazon facility. It opened up. And basically, this is actually kind of repulsive to me, because Amazon is well known for the union busting. They have effectively, if they did that in some countries, they'll be breaking the law. But they've done this in America for many, many years. There was recent strikes in England. I think they really don't want their workers unionizing, because their workers are put under such a strain and such terrible, terrible conditions that it will be very hard for them to argue, oh, we can't pay you more, or we can't not make you pee in bottles, or we can't, not make you walk long distances, because you could. you know they're like, all Amazon workers' problems are easily solved. Pay increases, bathroom breaks, all these things can be done by either just giving people more time, because there isn't an urgency. It's a manufactured urgency. It's just a supervisor going, get the job done, and there's the Amazon is telling you, get the job done. Does the job need to be done in that time? No, it does not. Does the employer say it needs to be done, so you have to effectively do it? Otherwise, you risk being fired. Yes. And that's the problem. So, first of all, you can reduce the dependency on getting the job done, because half the time you just think, there's a massive issue to that. Just by kind of tiring someone out, it actively lowers your life expectancy. They're actively slowly killing people. And also, you can just hire more people. Just full on, just hire more people. And make the environment less sadistic. Like, why do you have to walk half a mile? Or I don't know what that is in kilometers. I use kilometers. But like, why do you have to walk half a mile? To get a package? Why can't you be given a zone that's 100 meters? 50 meters, that kind of thing. Why can't you have a smaller zone that you work in? But no. Apparently, Amazon they just can't manage that. That's too complex. So to be honest, it does look like the Amazon system is effectively a sadistic one. It looks like it's set up because it doesn't actually look that efficient. To make someone walk that level of distance is not wise. You're ticking them down with a clock. You could shorten that clock and still make them like more efficient because they've got more energy in them, and also shorten the clock so it takes less time just by dividing the sections up. So have someone in this section the whole time instead of having workers go off into different areas and having to go. Why? What's with that? There's no. That doesn't seem like it makes any point to me. That just seems very unwise. That whole issue. Just hire more workers, and you obviously don't have as much of a problem. It's very, very simple. But of course, it's not like you could do that. Look at it. It's Amazon. They're only worth like $1 trillion. They only make billions every single year. In profits. It's not like they can take a little cut into them, like while the rest of us are, losing money all the time. It's not like the rest of us who are working away, having massive bills ranking up. For them, it's just not nice at all. But yeah, so a lot of issues coming up. There's also been an uptick in the mumps in recent weeks. So yeah, monkeypox also increasing. That's a problem. Apparently, the US also had a stockpile of vaccinations that could have been used against monkeypox, but they let them expire. Wow! I wonder who could have had those vaccinations. All the people who could have had those if you're going to just let them expire, use them. That's what happened. Like people, when they like do like a clean sweep of their house and like they bought ingredients to like cook a dinner or something, and then they're not really ingredients they typically use because maybe they're like relatively expensive. So they go, well, you know what? There's only a few scraps left, so I can't make a full-on dinner like out of a recipe with this because there's only there's only like a half a spoon left, and all these things. So they sort of like make a sort of a new thing. That's what people do. They don't want to make things go to waste, so they use them not necessarily for what they typically use them for, but like they still use them though. That's what you do. You give away the thing. If you're not using the thing and someone else really needs the thing, like money, for example, then you should give it away to that person or to those people. So they should have just given them away. But of course, no. What can you expect from the Americans? Not the American people, I'm saying, the government. Yeah. Too capitalist. Really to be good there. 17,000 people have applied for emergency social welfare payments in July alone. So, yeah. Not that good at all. Yeah, it's oh yeah. And also when it comes to fostering parents have said that the fostering allowance has become insufficient amid the cost of living crisis. So now children are costing money. They already did, but children do cost a lot of money. Yeah. So it's apparently, when it comes to the number of monkeypox cases, it's beginning to plateau. Say some figures, but there have been over 2,000, almost 3,000 cases of monkeypox recorded in the UK. So yeah, it's not looking good. I think the problem should be addressed as quickly as possible. People say, "Oh, the COVID pandemic," in the past tense. It's not really in the past tense. We still very much living with that. And now, which is, I think the issue is that we're now living with another thing. I think that's the problem ultimately. Like, I think a lot of people would have expected this. We get out of one pandemic and it's most likely we're either straight into another one, or it won't be too long before we will. And it looks like, the next one is now monkeypox. It appears to be thing there. And I mean, it is said that it is spread mostly through like skin to skin contact, and where like one person who with monkeypox puts their skin like on like a towel, and then the other person picks the towel up, that kind of thing, where it's like not necessarily direct skin to skin, but like the skin was on something and then someone else's skin is on something, that kind of thing. So it does appear that's the main way it's transmitted, but it's not the only way. And once again, these kind of things can mutate. So yeah, basically, not always, the nicest situation to be upfront in there. Not always the best time to have a spread in there. So yeah, some people have argued for abstinence. I somehow think that's a particular kind of people. But who knows? And the head of Amnesty Ukraine has quit over human rights report. So the controversy was sparked by an Amnesty report criticizing the Ukrainian military for how it has conducted its operations. And the head of Amnesty has quit over this. So, I mean, I think the problem really in Ukraine is that it's an invasive force. So, like, how it's conducted its operation has been to give out guns to people who will fight the Russians, or specifically the Russian military. So I think the issue with criticizing the people who are defending their homeland is that they are going to be using tactics that may be not necessarily preferable. There's some tactics which are just unnecessary, like civilian deaths. There's no need for killing civilians, and that kind of thing. Obviously, there's no need for that. But if you're saying, oh, they're using what can you expect? Almost, they like a good chunk of people are, not necessarily nice people. The majority of people aren't nice people, but they are defending the homeland. It's a bit like if America invades somewhere, it's a bit harsh to be like criticizing the country it's invading. Like, don't invade other countries. They won't technical human rights violations upon you, but it is you do have to try and keep a hold on it. There are certain things that are definitely off the table, and you're just being sadistic, and that's kind of what happens when you give a sadistic people a gun. But unfortunately, when you want to get sadistic people to defend you, yeah, that's what will happen. So yeah, a lot of things going on and a lot of things heading away. And in one of those pieces of news is that Rishi Sunak's remarks on the diverting funds from deprived urban areas has divided Tories somewhat. Some conservatives have defended him and have said that his comments were misunderstood. So let me get this straight. In the video where he's saying this, and he says, I took money from deprived urban areas and I brought it to places like this, which is, I believe, Tunbridge Wells, a very rich place. He said deprived urban areas. Now, I know this might come as a shock to you, conservatives, but you do know what deprived means, right? It means it's deprived. Why do you think it's deprived? It's because you deprived it. And see, that's the thing. So what he's saying was that Labour, he was saying this was a policy left over from Labour. He was saying that basically Labour didn't want to have the deprived urban areas, although some people have criticised that they didn't necessarily fund, deprived urban areas. Didn't fund deprived rural areas as much. So, so obviously there's a criticism there. But the point is, you're saying that they were misunderstood. But the whole point is that's why they're deprived, because you took money from them, and that's what you did. So what Rishi's doing there is creating a more deprived urban area. I know it's really hard thing to understand, but basically, the definition of deprived urban area would be that it's deprived, and that's what you're doing there. So yeah, I don't know. Just I know it's complex, but and a lot of problems in Gaza where many people have been killed. So yeah, will Israel stop their strikes on civilians? Probably not. There's been a ceasefire somewhat as of this moment, as far as, but yeah, it's not looking too good, to be honest. So yeah, not looking too good, and I think there really is an issue surrounding this. When looking at these kind of things, you do have to think, they probably won't leave, and because they have the support of countries like America, it's unlikely that they'll have pressure from other countries to leave. Sometimes you'll have a powerful country that'll enter another country, and they'll be like, "You do as we say, and we're not leaving your country." And then all the other countries will be like, no, that's not okay. I mean, you can throw your weight around that country, but we can definitely throw our weight around you. And then that forces the other country to leave. But in this case, it looks like it has support from some of the bigger countries. So yeah, unlikely that they will leave. But hopefully they'll stop killing innocent people and maybe give them back all their land. Although that would be unlikely. So yeah, so warnings have been made surrounding all sorts of things. And one of those things would be the Russian forces beginning assault on two key cities in eastern Ukraine. So these were, targets, since Russia's ongoing offense across Ukraine's eastern area. So yeah, it's not looking too good at all. So yeah, there's also been ships that have left Ukraine now. One of them, Lebanon, just before, where it's like, yeah, there wasn't an issue there. Bit of a problem where you see the grain shipment arriving in Lebanon has been postponed apparently. So it was set to arrive on Sunday, but it is no longer due to arrive then. I'm not sure it arrived since then, but probably not. So yeah, there are problems coming there. Lebanon had that there. And when it comes to other situations, so seeing some of the problems, you do see where there's all sorts of issues surrounding this, really, I think. And really, it's problematic, to say the least. It's probably going to be more of a problem later on as food shortages begin to continue. Although, in fairness, there is solutions to all food shortages most of the time, and that's to give food out for free. So yeah, a lot of things going on. China is set to end its Taiwanese military drills. Did so. But who knows if they'll starting up again. Anyway. Now, a Russian-backed official in Ukraine has died after an assassination attack. He was reportedly shot multiple times in his home yesterday. Yeah, people don't tend to like you if you're Russian-backed anymore, or well, actually, ever really in a lot of countries. But yeah, and officials have also confirmed that 10 members of the crisis-hit Sri Lankan team have vanished from the Commonwealth Games. Sri Lanka, I believe, just lost two of its main leaders, and have had a bit of an economic problem there. So concerning to say the least. But the Commonwealth Games, yeah. Well, right. Commonwealth. And in Ireland, Sinn Féin apparently is the most popular party by a wide margin. Now, the margin isn't even 50%, but, what does that tell you about other parties? I mean, I'm just saying, it's not a good sign when it's like the most popular party by a wide margin is a party that has less than 50% of support. So, technically, in a democracy, they would never be in government. But, Liz Truss has pledged to cut taxes immediately, as before. And of course, Rishi Sunak is technically right that this would not actually help the most vulnerable. It would actually hinder them because, it would mean higher profits for everybody else. And what do you think happens when you give companies higher profits? Yeah, less money goes to the people. You see, Liz, basically, if you cut taxes, then you kind of have to cut public services. And the only real way to cut cut taxes, but not public services, is to kind of borrow money. And it's kind of unwise to borrow money for a long-term sort of basis, but for short-term things like it's just so much easier just to raise taxes on the rich. I know it's a massive thing, but all those people with all that money coming in, yeah, it's shocking, but you can just put a tax on them. Who would have known? And who would have asked for that, huh? I mean, it's not like anybody would ever think of that. Or maybe they would and they just wouldn't be bothered in doing it because they get paid by all the rich people. Who would have known anyway? So yeah, looking at this, there are more and more people who are in sports that have been involved in violence. I believe there's a German defender who's under investigation for domestic violence. I'm not saying they are guilty of it. I'm just saying, it is a bit weird that all these celebrities that are up there are all up there for assault. You've got like former Man United star who's up for trial for assault. They pleaded not guilty to the charges, but still up there for assault. So just saying, it's not like I'm just saying it does look a bit weird that all these sporty celebrities are abusers. Would be the word. I'm not saying they are abusers. I'm just saying they probably are. But it's a bit concerning. I don't know. It might have something to do with the fact that the industry you need to sometimes take abuse, and sometimes it lands up you giving abuse, and so yeah, it's not nice, not nice at all. And these kind of people get paid millions. Imagine that. So yeah, a lot of things have happened. Actually, by the way, according to that, there's also 4 more ships going to leave Ukraine as new strike hits a nuclear site. So yeah, lots of problems. Anyway, so yeah, I think the lifting of COVID-19 measures is a factor in the surge of home break-ins. So there's been a 35% rise in the first 3 months of the year. Yeah, this is due mostly, I'd say, to people who are returning to office work or, in office work. They're not necessarily in an office, but they're in work, in a physical location. And I think while some jobs can't be made non work from home, non things like I think working from home can be beneficial for certain jobs, and it's one of those things where you never want to be in the position where you're forcing someone that avenue. But I think it should be an option that you should be able to let people choose, because some people, they don't like being around people, all these sort of things here. And office environments are, to be honest, a little bit stressful. There's always that issue of like, oh, you have to get work done, but your office environment is stressful, and there's all these sort of things. And if you're very good at getting work done, very quick at getting it done, very good at getting it done quickly but well, the problem arises when you've got a stressful work environment where you can't relax, so work actually takes you far longer. And then ordinarily, let's say you could have gotten the work done in, let's say, 6 hours, and then you'd have time to enjoy yourself. But instead, because of all this hassle and all the things, and getting to work by whatever mode of transport you get, that can add on time, and suddenly you've got now hours where you're spending due to work, but you're not actually technically working. Or if you are working, it's because the work was slowed down. That kind of problem. That rises and all these other things. So I do think there should be an option, and that would, of course, apparently reducing home break-ins. And that's the thing, So it's also beneficial for businesses that don't have to have as much office space. If people are working from home, that's a plus for business. They don't have to have as many offices. But all these other things there. But businesses apparently do not like the fact that people are able to work from home, because many businesses are saying, nope, back home now, or back to work now. Yeah, in work. Yeah. And in Ireland, wind energy has provided only 34% of Ireland's power. It has been a twofold increase in demand met by wind compared with the same period last year. However, of course, you do want to get it up to, not necessarily 100%, because you could use like solar energy and all this other, and hydroelectric, and technically nuclear power, and all these other things like that. So you could use them as well. So not necessarily 100%, but a higher percentage than what it is now anyway. So yeah, the US Senate has finally passed legislation aimed at tackling climate change. And yeah, sorry, turns out China's launched fresh military drills around Taiwan. Of course it does. So yeah, will China, do something? Maybe, not saying they won't, because yeah, it looks like they're fairly bolstered by the fact that European countries are just like, yeah, Ukraine, Russia, bad, shouldn't have done that. By the way, Russia, here's some billions for all those gas you gave us there now. There we are. Now, and do you want this in rubles or euro or dollar? Or what? Okay, there you are. That kind of thing. It's not looking too good, there. But anyway, moving on to other things. When it comes to Colombia's first, apparently leftist president, has said the war on drugs had failed. So Gustavo Petro was sworn into office yesterday. So yeah, this is the thing that's going on. And Colombia, it's it's he's been a member of it's apparently M19 guerrilla group, and has promised to fight inequality and bring peace to the country, long haunted by feuds between the government's drug traffickers and rebels. So a lot of things going on here. I think it's probably a good thing that he beat conservative parties, because not necessarily the best thing to have. He is said to have failed to connect with voters frustrated by rising poverty. The conservative parties, that is, because what do you expect? Conservative parties, it's it is an example of people not being stupid. You see this with some people. Their attitude to politics is vote the way you always do, which ultimately becomes problematic. Because, for example, in England, let's say you voted for Labour a couple of years ago, that would have been a good thing. Now, not so good. Like if you were like almost a socialist, voting Labour is not good enough. Labour is fairly right wing now. They're not exactly I think there. So that's kind of thing. That's an example. In America, for example, if you're even just like kind of left wing, who do you vote for? That both the Democrats and the Republicans are both right wing. That kind of thing. So what do you do in that scenario? The problem of saying, "Oh, I'll stick with," like, the Republican Party would have been your leftist party. They would have been the party you would have gone for if you were being alive back then and you just voted the way you'd always voted. You would be voting for the Republican Party right now and thinking, "Yeah, really great for all those leftist policies." And it's like, no, 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 just getting inching closer and closer to fascism. So yeah, a lot of problems, going on there. Not good at all. But in other news, the government of Ireland has approved a 75,000 funding for bog restoration. So, restored peatlands they do play an important role in mitigating the effects of climate change because they're not as bad as things like oil, gas, that type of thing. So while they're not green energy, they can be something you might use to have a middle ground where they are, there's a lot of it and all that sort of stuff. And technically, if you're thinking of moving to green energy, you could just dig it all up all at once. You could become energy sustainable. Just be sustainable yourself. So yeah, so a lot of problems. I think when it comes to things, yeah. Yeah, it's not looking good. But you do see that. Also, when it comes to energy efficiency, it's said that detached houses use 82% more gas for heating than apartments. However, the key thing here is that you don't necessarily you wouldn't necessarily say that may be down to the fact that they're detached and just that. It may also be down to the fact that if you have an apartment, you don't tend to insulate just your apartment. It tends to be the case that, you might insulate the whole building. If you are insulating the whole apartment, yeah, I've never personally insulated just one apartment. Well, I've never insulated a block either, but you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that apartments tend to come with slightly better things. Like, for example, if you do have an apartment that is a whole apartment block that is insulated, it is obviously going to be more beneficial than a detached house that isn't, or even an apartment that isn't insulated. Sometimes can be better, and also the whole thing with detached houses, yeah, you can kind of believe it because apartments, you can get heat from other apartments, all sort of thing. Yeah, you can believe that. Yeah, so a lot of things going along, and thousands of refugees may be forced back to hotels. Currently, refugees are set to be in student accommodation, but unfortunately, students are returning to their colleges. So yeah, not exactly the best. And bail has been refused for a man charged with sexual assault of a woman who's fighting him off. So yeah, I think that's fair. Just lock him up. Yeah. So lots of problems going on. There's many issues. Ukraine has called for the demilitarization of an occupied nuclear plant. Is concerning to see. Nuclear plants don't exactly tend to fare the best when they are heavily damaged. Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, lots of problems there. So yeah, lots of problems going on, lots of problems in the world. When it comes to the British political situation, I think Rishi Sunak is probably going to get a little bit of a boost off this thing, of saying, "Oh, I had a private urban all this sort of stuff," because sorry, he does benefit from this, I would say, because it is something where he looks good enough to the Conservatives. Does he look good to the electorate right now? No. When the election comes around, if he stays around for politics, he may resign if he doesn't win the leadership, because those kind of things can be a bit embarrassing. Like Nigel Farage, for example, didn't resign, but it looked pretty embarrassing for him to consistently go up for the leadership and be like just rejected every single time. Just every single time. Hasn't been prime minister yet. But, I think he would have been Jesus. He would be an awful prime minister. But you know what I mean? That kind of thing. He's not a nice man, but that's the kind of thing. So Rishi Sunak might decide to leave politics if it gets a bit embarrassing when he loses. He may not lose necessarily. This, I would say, would give him a thing up in the conservative polls would probably place him up higher now. General population polls would probably put him down because moron. But yeah, I would. Although I would say he's become worse and worse, and now I think he's officially crossed down below Liz Truss. In my opinion, if I was voting for them, I'm not an English Conservative Party member, so unfortunately, I don't get to vote for them. But if I was voting for them, oh yeah, I do not. Yeah, if I was a Conservative Party member, I probably wouldn't care. But those two. They are very right wing, like very, full on, like verging into almost fascism. I'm not calling them fascists. I'm just saying they're verging into the kind of take fascism type thing, which you do find in some right wingers, and then actually some people who are not necessarily right wing. Where you start pitching people against groups like, oh, we need to reform this act because definitely we need to protect the rights of you, right? That's the thing. So that's why you support us, right? You support us in this because we're the protect the rights of you. Definitely not to discriminate against people. Definitely not that. Oh, and then now we're gonna have to look at that act. Yeah, it's just that your rights are being infringed upon, so we need to protect you by removing these people's rights. Yeah, this kind of issue does arise because I do think it's an issue, which is that looking at it, they both do seem fairly right wing, and personally, Liz is beginning to look better than Rishi, to be honest. I think Rishi Sunak would probably do well enough in an election if he was going up for PM to the general people in a few years. People have short memories, but when it comes to politics, anyway. But that kind of thing. So maybe he'll stick around if he loses, which he probably will. But who knows? I think this definitely would have given him a boost, personally. Looking at it, it doesn't look like he'd be too good of a leader. There always is the attitude, which is that maybe since he was going up for the leadership election, he did become more right wing, and so did Liz Truss. They've both become basically they're both appealing to very right wing groups who are like, oh, say this, yeah, and that's this policy. We want this policy, so say it, and that's this policy. We like this one, so and that issue, which is that they are both having people in their ears telling them what to do. That's a very bad thing for it's one thing it's not a democracy to begin with to elect your leader that way. I don't think you should elect a leader like that. I don't think you should have the power to become the leader of a country simply by being part of the party that was elected to the majority. Like, you weren't elected as leader. You weren't elected as head of the party even. Like, at least if you're head of the party, and then people elect the party, at least then you're kind of voting for them. It's kind of similar to like America, where you vote for someone who in turn votes for the person, and they're supposed to say beforehand. That's kind of thing. It's like, oh, by voting for this person, you're kind of voting for this person to be leader, which isn't always a good thing because it's not really a democracy that way. Because it's like, yeah, with me, you get this good policy, and this horrible person who was actually murdered people before, allegedly. Yeah, allegedly. That kind of thing. Where it's like, oh, that person is terrible, but you're good. So, the package that comes together, you have to decide on bad packages, and your argument could just be, why not just separate them out? You know, might that be a better option? Anyway, the point being though that I don't think that's a good way to elect a leader. But even if that was considered a democratic way, the fact that they have people whispering in their ears is, that's not democratic at all. Like, that's what happens in a lot of countries. You've leaders who are basically puppet leaders. They're oftentimes it's not like they don't represent the people who are whispering in their ears. Most of the time they actually do agree with the people who are whispering in their ears. It's not like, oh no, I don't want to do that. The person's like, well, we have this stuff here, all the evidence here. See, do you want this to leak or something like that? It's not necessarily blackmail. In some cases it is, but it is in the case that you do look at this and go, while you do agree with them, you don't necessarily come up with that harsh of a policy. You might stay away from it because the electorate might not like it that much, and you're like, I don't think I want to announce that policy. But if someone's like, we want you to announce it, it's like, oh, okay, well, I have to do what you say because you're more powerful than the democratic will of the people for some reason. So yeah, I many problems in many places. So yeah, basically, I think it's a problematic country, England, and it's a problematic world we live in. Can we solve it? Who knows? But all I know is that this live stream of the news is unfortunately over.